We're just nattering about the Houston Texans here.
Well, good.
What I was saying was that they are a perfect example of there being, I think you could, well, at least on my board, I have 10 premier prospects, which is an unusual amount in any given year. And so to be sat with the third overall pick when you have needs at O-line, needs at D-line, needs every single place on the football field, you probably couldn't be happier if you then. And I do think that they will take someone, even though what's in their best interest is probably to move that pick to whoever wants a quarterback.
Yeah, to me, it's got to be a movable pick. And it may be that there are teams lower down that see, the Jets with a couple of picks, the Giants with a couple of picks, and think maybe we need to get up to 3 to get a Thibodeau, if to get up to 3 to get a Hamilton, depending on what happens. And as far as the Texans, if they stay there, I suspect you could just put a blindfold on Nick Caserio and get him to chuck a dart, and wherever it lands, they'll take the pick, because that's just how many holes there. I mean, the whole rebuild has been slightly wayward, maybe. The one question for me over the Texans is there seems to be over the last 18 months a sort of question mark over Laramie Tunsil and whether or not he'll stay, whether or not they'll move him in a year. There was talk he might get traded this offseason, and you wonder whether or not that's something that they have in the pipeline and they just bring an Evan Neal in and put him at left guard, or and then have him as the long-term replacement. It doesn't seem like a particularly, it's sort of addition by subtraction kind of thing, but I kind of can't really work out what's going on in Houston anyway, so maybe that wouldn't be a surprise. I don't know. I just think, to me, this is a prime, Nick Caserio's got to be working the phones to try and move down, because I just don't think that this is a somewhere where they can maximize what they need. I just think you've missed out on potentially those edge rushers. Do you bring in a tackle, and then are you thinking, as good as Hamilton is with the third overall pick, is that too high for a safety? Do you want to go corner? It's just, that feels too high for me, for Gardner. It's I would be moving down pretty quickly.
It's another one for me, and I don't know if this just shows my come up from when I was in the scouting world and all the old heads I was around, but I really do think about, man, it's hard to take an off-ball player at third overall, just because impact in the line of scrimmages I reference is, when you're as bad as they are with that many holes, Detroit at least has a really solid offensive line, so if they want to talk themselves into Kyle Hamilton, I can kind of understand the reasoning there. If I'm them, I'm looking purely at nonsense rah-rah culture stuff too. Now, I love Kayvon Thibodeau. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is the second best player in the class. If he was there for me at number 3, I'd take him. I'd say, right, I've got a great get off and go guy for the next 5 years, and hopefully become something special if he's really into this football thing. And if not, it was a absolutely fine value play. Talent makes sense in that spot. But if I am doing the culture game and, with Nick Caserio and all that stuff, I think you bring in Nicky Mekwano, and he wants to just smash everyone in the face from the first day he steps on the field, and probably goes to the Pro Bowl in year 1 or year 2. That, to me, screams of them. He is so violent in the run game, and yet is an adorable, lovely human being off the field. What more could you possibly want from at least what they've kind of put out there, what they're looking for in a football team, which is this rugged, hard-nosed stuff, doing all the New England stuff, but then also you've got to be, a good guy off the field. So I think Ekwonu matches up quite well there.
I mean, Ekwonu, this is a guy who played guard in high school, and to me, I personally think his best position will be at guard. I think, like I said earlier, he'll start a tackle. I think he might move inside to guard, and there's some tape I feel very uncomfortable with of his at left tackle. There's also tape where he looks fantastic, but he ran the anchor leg on his prep 4x400 meter relay squad at 286 pounds and ran a 52.37. I mean, what world? He's hit 80 miles an hour on the GPS. He is his brother's a linebacker. His father played college basketball in Nigeria. His mum was a track athlete. He's named after Ricky Woods. Like you say, he's a great kid. He's a massive fan of musical theatre, which is absolutely of no relevance whatsoever to his final draft position, but I just find it fantastic. He played Pongo in 101 Dalmatians, which to me is one of the greatest pieces of pre-draft information you'll ever find. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to throw a Cleland Ferrell type edge bomb in here. Does Jermaine Johnson figure as high as 3?
I think so. I think like we said, all these guys are in play, and I know it sounds daft and it sounds like crappy analysis. I think that's part of why draft coverage across the whole media landscape has suffered this year. One, we don't have great quarterbacks, but it's like how often can you say all these players are really good? The team's going to take the guys they like the most. But when you have all these guys coming for pre-draft visits and Jermaine Johnson walks in the building, you just look at yourself and go, that guy's going to the Pro Bowl. Do you want to play against that guy? Do you want the guy on our team? He's just one of those guys. And the thing with Jermaine Johnson for me is the length with the pad level, which I know to people sounds nerdy, but it's like it is rare to see someone with that long arms convert to power the way he does. He was at his most dominant against Miami as the power player with the build of someone you would say it's Shane Ray, it's dip and rip, it's first step quickness, and then he fights someone off because they can't get their hand on his pads because his arms are longer than the other guys. But he is right up for the fight. And adding that piece to his game, where I do think he struggles in the run game, he's not overly vicious, but man, does he fight in the pass rush, and that's what we're looking for with the third overall pick, right? Is a pass rush who gets us double-digit sacks and makes life hell in the pocket, and we'll figure the other stuff out later. We can go get ourselves a nose and get him clean on the edge if he's this special. You know, you can scheme around having a dominant pass rusher. That's the most fun time to scheme on defense. So I absolutely think that's in play. They will do something unusual because that's this team, and they are right in the Mayock Gruden zone of taking their guy who, whatever it is on their board, ends up being, you know, way higher than everyone else.
You talk about that Miami game. There's Miami's left tackle Zion Nelson who'll be in next year's draft, but probably a day 2 prospect if he has a solid year. You know, he is dominant against Nelson. I mean, there's a play where he literally lifts him up with one arm and walks him back into Tyler Van Dyke, and you're like, what? I mean, is this guy human? Then on the other side, Jared Williams, the right tackle. I mean, it's like watching a deer on roller skates, like a baby deer on roller skates. It's like he's on a fairground ride. He gets spun round so much. He's on the waltzer. I actually think he doesn't play too badly against the run. I think he sets a pretty hard edge. He's got a good base. He's just so long. He keeps himself clean. He can lock himself out in terms of arms. But I mean, when push comes to shove, if Thibodeau's on the board, I kind of feel like he's got to be the guy if they don't trade down. So before you ask the question, I will say that Kayvon Thibodeau will be a Houston Texan.
Wow. I would not imagine that. That's crazy. They could be the team doing an insane number of leaks against him just to try and get him there.
Yeah,
that is certainly possible.